but Shakespeare one gets acquainted with without knowing how. It is a part of an Englishman's constitution. His thoughts and beauties are spread abroad that one touches them everywhere. One is intimate with him by instinct. Jane Austen in Mansfield Park. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley and I am a Christian wife, homeschooling mother of 3, out to redeem my very own literary education. And that means for the first time since high school, I have started reading plays again. And last year in 2024, I read 3 plays. One play by, of course, William Shakespeare, another play by Moliere, who is a French playwright, and then the third play is, of course, by Oscar Wilde. And I'm really excited to talk to you about the 3 plays that I read because I just forgot how fun this could be. So if you are looking for something that's just kind of quick but fun and entertaining, but you don't want to opt for a screen in a movie, I highly recommend either reading a play or listening to one on audiobook. So the very first play I read was A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. And I did actually read A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare because I have this 2-volume set of the complete works of William Shakespeare. And since I already had these on hand, I thought, well, you know what, why not? I'll go ahead and read them instead of either watching the play or listening to the play on audiobook. I followed along with the Literary Life podcast for A Midsummer Night's Dream because I was actually pretty intimidated by picking up Shakespeare again. I wasn't really sure if I would understand the language, and the Literary Life podcast is one of my favorite reading podcasts ever because not only do they have really fun book discussions, but also really great educational, historical, and cultural insights into the text that they're working with and reading through that really help you as a reader if you did not major in English or literature in college, which I did not. But that's okay. It's good news because you can still read William Shakespeare because Shakespeare wrote for the everyman, for the common man, not for necessarily upper crust society. You don't have to be super academic to enjoy his work because he is such a classic. His ability to capture the quirks of human nature and the truths of life in a really humorous but deep way is just absolutely profound. And A Midsummer Night's Dream is a comedy, so it's the perfect place to start if you're intimidated by Shakespeare because it's fun. It's lighthearted, it has some fairies in it, it has some mixed up lovers that's absolutely humorous, but I think what really makes the play is the group of actors. So I'm not sure if Shakespeare was trying to make fun of theater and actors in A Midsummer Night's Dream, but he did, and it was hilarious. So in this play, you have 4 sets of Athenians, and one couple is forbidden to marry because the father has already wanted his daughter to marry someone else, but she loves him. The other guy loves her, so you have a triangle. Well, then you have her best friend off to the side who loves the guy that she is supposed to marry but doesn't want to marry, but he doesn't love her. He loves this other girl. And so what do the fairies do when they see this crazy love triangle, love square, who knows? Well, they meddle, of course, and they mix everything up. However, there is a bit of a domestic relationship squabble between the king and queen of fairies, so then they start playing tricks on one another by bringing in some of the ridiculous acting troupe and making the queen of fairies fall in love with the most ridiculous actor ever who gets turned into a donkey because, well, he's kind of a donkey, if you know what I'm saying. But it's so funny. This play is lighthearted, and of course it has a happy ending and everything gets sorted out, but it was really fun, and it actually didn't take me that long to read it all. If you were to sit and watch the play or to listen to it on audiobook, I don't even think it would take you 2 hours to get through. And so if you have not read William Shakespeare in a long time, I would highly encourage starting with A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I'm so glad that I read that one because that specific one has literary references everywhere. And last year I read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and there was a reference to a Midsummer Night's Dream that I picked up right after reading the play that I would not have understood had I not read the play. And this happens after Jo moves into the boarding house where Professor Bear also is. There was a masquerade on New Year's Eve that Jo attended, and she sees Mr. Bear was Nick Bottom, and Tina was Titania, a perfect little fairy in his arms. To see them dance was quite a landscape, to use a Teddyism. And there's this cute little illustration in this particular edition I have of Little Women of Professor Bear and Tina dressed as Nick Bottom, who is that absolute ridiculous actor who gets turned into kind of half a donkey, and Titania, who is the fairy queen that the fairy king kind of tricks into that situation. But I would have never understood that reference had I not read A Midsummer Night's Dream. So I highly recommend that if you want to get started with Shakespeare again. And if you are nervous about not understanding the play, I highly suggest reading along with the Literary Life podcast, or you can find a book of summaries about the play. So one I suggest is Tales from Shakespeare by Charles and Mary Lamb. This is one that I'll be using in our homeschool with the Ambleside online curriculum to just dive into Shakespeare, and that's what these are, Tales from Shakespeare. So they take the play and they turn it into this narrative story that you can read aloud to your child that summarizes the play. And I'm actually going to be using this on the next Shakespeare play I plan to read. The Literary Life podcast is currently doing Much Ado About Nothing, and I'm going to read that in here first before jumping into the play. I don't think I necessarily have to, but I'm just curious to see how they go about it in a narrative and to see if it actually helps me understand the play better. And as far as the debate on whether you should read the play or whether you should listen to it or watch it performed, I really think it depends on what your motives are. If you are a writer and you want to learn how to write better or capture character or story in the way that Shakespeare or any playwright does, then I would recommend reading the actual text. You can absorb a lot more that way as far as the writing style, and you can also commonplace quotes a lot easier if you're reading versus if you are listening. And speaking of Little Women and Professor Bear and Shakespeare, if you've read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, you know that Professor Bear actually gifts Jo March a copy of Shakespeare's work, and he says this about it because Jo March is a writer herself. So reading Shakespeare would benefit her. You say often you wish a library. Here I give you one. For between these lids, he meant covers, is many books in one. Read him well, and he will help you much. For the study of character in this book will help you to read it in the world and paint it with your pen. And then Jo March goes on to say, I never knew how much there was in Shakespeare before, but then I never had a bear to explain it to me. I thought that was so sweet and romantic. So if you are a writer, I do think reading Shakespeare and other plays would be beneficial to you. But if you just want to enjoy them and get the ideas from them, I think there's zero problems with listening to the audiobook or watching the play be performed if you can, because that was the intention of playwrights. They did not write these plays to be criticized by literary critics. They didn't write these plays to make everyone else better writers. They wrote these plays to be enjoyed by their audience and to say something about the society that they were living in, or to just tell a really great and funny and true story. So whether you read the plays or whether you listen to them or whether you watch them is entirely up to you. Either way, all of the stories are great. So the next play that I read is one I actually listened to, and that is Tartuffe by Moliere. And this is a French play that was actually banned by King Louis in its time because it called out the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church and its religious leaders. Sounds serious, but this is actually also a comedy. And when I tell you that I laughed out loud so much at this one, I really did. So I listened to this on my Hoopla app, which I have available to me thanks to my library and my library card. And I listened to the performance on Hoopla that was done by LA Theater Works. And they had an entire cast for this audiobook, and it was so well done. And in this play, you follow a family. So the patriarch, the father, is completely entrapped by the false teacher, the false Catholic leader, Tartuffe. That is his name. He is swindling him for all of his money. He is just being greedy and gobbling up all of the family's food, money out of the father's pocket. He is lusting after the father's wife, and the entire family is just standing around in disbelief that their father is so faithful to this false teacher. It's really funny how it calls it out. It's really funny how the father is just so blind to everything that's happening in front of him, and he just keeps making excuses. But unfortunately, this is true, and this does happen in real life, which is why the Bible warns us against false teachers, false doctrines, because you just never know when you're going to see a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that is what Tartuffe is. And let me tell you, it is very satisfying to watch this play wrap up and see him get his comeuppance, because he absolutely deserved them. But the actors deserve a round of applause on this one, especially the actor that played Tartuffe, because the voice was just so like breathy and falsely pious, and you could just tell he was like maybe a real slob. It was hilarious. So I highly recommend Tartuffe by Moliere. And if you want to listen to the audiobook, the one done by LA Theater Works was really, really great. And the very last play that I also listened to on my Hoopla app was An Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde. I also loved this one. It was another comedy, so it did make me laugh. This is a play I actually want to go back and read, because there were so many quotes that I found just so good, and I wanted to put them in my commonplace book. So in An Ideal Husband, we follow a couple, Sir Robert Chittern and his wife, Lady Gertrude, and then some of their friends. And Sir Robert is a really moral, highly respected political figure in the country. And it only appears that way because actually a long time ago in his past, he sort of had a dirty deal, a backdoor deal that he never wanted to come to light until the lady who is blackmailing him comes back into the picture and absolutely threatens to expose him and destroy his career if he does not do her bidding. So he is warring within himself. Do I do what I know is wrong and what everyone else is going to know is wrong when I say it, just to keep my reputation and just to self-preserve my career and my marriage, because his wife sees him as an ideal husband. She puts him on this pedestal and just worships him and his perfection. And we all know that people just aren't perfect, right? Like, we all need forgiveness and grace because we've all sinned, we've all fallen short of the glory of God, and we've probably messed up at some point. And so when it's exposed, his wife is just absolutely disgraced by him, and they're trying to decide what the best route is for him to go. She wants him to give up his career in politics, but he wants to keep it, but he doesn't know what to do. And then there is this sort of nonchalant friend that comes along and just, he seems like he would be almost like a cad, but he kind of is the person who's the most put together and sees everything clearly and calls the shots outright. And this was another play that it was really satisfying to see the end and see how it all worked out, especially within the marriage, because I just love to see when couples come back together after a dispute and everything wind up in a happily ever after that way. So that one was really, really fun. And I know the Literary Life podcast has episodes for The Importance of Being Earnest, which is another Oscar Wilde play that I think is in fact more popular than An Ideal Husband. So I may also be getting to that one this year, hopefully. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these plays, which Shakespeare play is your favorite, or if you think there's a play that I didn't mention that you would love to see me read and review, or a play you think that I would just really enjoy and that I should try next. That is all for now. Happy reading, friends. Oh my goodness. I am so tongue-tied today.